Got such a special, beautiful soul here with me today. She's a heart-led leader doing some incredible work on the planet to bring emotional intelligence to this world. So important. This work is very near and dear to my heart, and I feel like the universe brought us together to help support our very aligned mission and purpose in this world. She's a communication coach in the Chicago area for over 15 years, and she's just created an incredible book all about educating people about their moods, their emotions. It's called the Moody Day Book. And oh, Kealah Parkinson, it's so good to have you here today. I am so excited about this leadership conversation with you.
Thank you, Schamet. So am I. Very, very excited. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm excited to be part of this whole change making festival, basically, that you're doing for us virtually around the world.
Aw, thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to just kind of get out there. And, it's always been my dream and mission and purpose to create community,
Mhm.
and having a directory. And I was thinking about this yesterday of having a directory of light leaders and light workers. And
Yeah.
that's really, what I've been doing. So it's great. People can go, oh, this person does this and this person does that. And this person can help me with this and this person can help me with this. And I've got this circle of beautiful light leaders doing incredible things on the planet, and you're one of them. So thank you for being in this sacred, divine, beautiful circle.
Thank you. So, so great. Feels good too.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And in the Mayan calendar, I don't know if you know anything about the Mayan calendar, but I'm a white galactic dog. And it's
Okay.
all and I have a white dog as well. So it's kind of funny,
That's great.
but they're all
You have like
about heart.
crazy.
Yeah, heart, loyalty, companions of destiny, and bringing people together. That's kind of like just what I
What you
do.
do.
So here we are.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Perfect.
Yeah. So my first question for you today is, what does leadership mean to you?
Oh, so I love this question. And my guess is you've gotten a lot of answers that talk about leadership being more internal and guiding people and less like aggressive and external and forcing people, right? I'm guessing that we're talking a little bit about that because I know that's what it means to me. It means being able to be a guide to help people be their best selves and to contribute and collaborate in this way. To me, that's a true leader, being able to lead with personal maturity, emotional maturity, and not to be forceful. That kind of, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And so what does old paradigm leadership mean to you?
Yeah. So old paradigm would be kind of that model that we've all been used to, right? Where it is more coercive and, we don't have time for your feelings and sit down and do your job. And, there's no I in team, right? And that means you just disappear and you become a cog on the wheel. And I think that it's important to contribute and to not be, the I in the middle of team who's, the fly in the ointment kind of, but I also think that it's incredibly important to say, all of team is we. I've heard that phrase recently too, and I love it. There's no I in team, but there is a we, and so we all get to be a part of it. And I kind of just also take issue with, like, there is an I'm an I, and you're an I, and you're an I, and you're an I, and we're all here to make up those letters in team.
Oh, I love that. I've actually not heard that before.
Oh,
So, yay. Oh, I love that. And I agree with you. Ideally, that, leadership isn't of that old paradigm and so directive.
mhm.
But I have to say, at the end, we're at the end of the summit, and this is my second summit. And, I love the circle and bringing everyone into that, circle. But I have found that I've had to be directive and I have had to, like what we're calling old paradigm. I've
Right.
actually had to like whip out like the Wonder Woman lasso of truth and like
Yeah.
wrangle cats
Right.
and like, because, we're all like cats new thought
Yeah,
leaders, like
right.
artists, and like going all in our different directions and everything.
Yes, I'd be like this. Yeah, totally true.
And I'm like, and I'm like sitting with it all of the information that's, been put into me about leadership, and then having just led, my second
Yes.
summit there, I'm just like, well, sometimes it does have to be a little directive. Otherwise,
Mhm.
things don't get done. So could
Well, and I
you
love how
could
you're
you
using the
speak into
word.
that a little
Yeah,
bit? Yeah.
yes, thank you. Because I'm gonna say I love how you're using the word directive, not coercive, right?
Oh,
There's a
sure.
difference
Yeah.
between those two things, right? And I love you're like automatically, you're even just with your languaging, you're like, I'm being directive, and that's important too. I actually think that's an important piece of leadership, especially from emotional maturity. It's where we're actually stepping into the role of leaders. We're committing to, yes, I'm the face of this. And so I'm the one who has to show up, who has to role model it, right? Just like with parenting, you and I are both moms, and like this whole thing where we have to like step up and be our best selves when we don't even have the energy, right? Because we're trying to model it and teach it. And for me, there's also this modeling of processing my feelings and accepting them and learning from them. That's an important part of my work. And so if I'm going to do it anywhere, I'm really going to do it with the people that I made. Like I'm really going to do it there. They're my favorite people on the planet right now. And so I'm definitely going to show up and be that role model, and then hold them accountable. They may say, I want to be on my computer past bedtime. And I'm going to say, no, you may not be on your computer even up to bedtime. You have to take some time off. You have to unwind. You have to get a screen time break and give your eyes a break. You have to check in with your body and other times and do that. And that's being the bad guy and not the fun parent, right? And I want my children to love me, and I know that when they feel safe, when they know that I will hold them accountable, that I will be consistent, that's true safety, where then they have other places where they can struggle and strive and test the boundaries and do the things. And I just think that totally translates to all of our teams. I mean, I'm sure you have felt like a parent sometimes in this too.
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining the difference between being directive and
Mhm.
coercion. And can you kind of pick that apart a
Yes.
little bit more, of like the differences, the nuances of being the old paradigm and where we're going in this new paradigm of leadership? Like, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts?
Yes.
Can you deepen into that?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited about it. I think it's scary for a lot of us who've been trained in the coercive, right? Because it doesn't matter where we're showing up as leaders. We could be in preschools, we could be in our volunteer communities, right? It's something we do in our local neighborhood. It just could be the HOA, right? The Housing Organization Association, right? You could just be trying to decide like what color the mailboxes are supposed to be. And, the old model was get everybody on my side. This is the vote, get as many votes as I can kind of thing, if we're using, that kind of place. But it could also be our workplaces. It could be online. It could be, if we're brand ambassadors somewhere. There are so many places that we all show up as leaders. And the old model has always been shame people into doing it. We've got to shame you into doing it, right? That's coercion. Coercion is shaming and guilting somebody to do something, even if they don't want to. Just making sure that they do it no matter what, not listening to their whys of why it's hard, not giving them extra tools. Or if we go ahead and give them extra tools, we do that with shame and guilt too. That's the old coercive model that all of us, males, females, plus we've all grown up with this model on the planet. And I feel like it's been there in every country and every community, right? A lot of even spiritual communities will use this dynamic. And it's just about, you've got to show up, you've got to volunteer, you've got to contribute. It doesn't matter if you're tired, we're all tired. You'll sleep when you're dead. These are the phrases that we say in the US to our volunteers, right? And it's just not healthy. And then the directive is, this is the job. This is what you need to do. Here are the boundaries. If someone is struggling, I can even proactively go to them and say, you look like you might need help. How can we support you? Right. And it doesn't mean we then bleed resources to somebody who's not going to be able to follow through. At that point, we might be able to say, okay, maybe this isn't the best spot for you right now. Let's help you get to where you need to be so that we can onboard someone who's going to be the contributor that our team needs. Right. And then also some places, maybe we have to work with what we've got and we have to go, all right, how do we pivot? How do we shift? How do we get the whole team to go, this is part of the dynamic now? For instance, in families, you can't fire your kid if they're being a jerk. So you have to say, all right, tonight we thought we were going to have a peaceful dinner, but maybe we're going to talk about this issue now, right? And we have to like step up to the plate in some way. And so that directive control and that directive leadership is really about being that consistent captain of the ship, sort of. I'm using so many metaphors in all of this. I hope people are
I
following along with
I
them.
absolutely love metaphors.
That's why it's all coming out. It's because we're talking about it. Yeah. But, I just think that's the difference is the directive is about being able to be the director and let people be who they are and still help them step up their game and rise to the occasion and role model it. And does that mean that we have to be perfect as leaders? No, but we can have places we go to get our buckets filled instead of like, melting down on our teams or our families. Because that gets a little
Yeah.
more crazy making it's not consistent or healthy. And
No,
that's where
I
emotional
know.
intelligence comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that there needs to be some sort of education about emotions and emotional intelligence in schools,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all still learning it. And what I'm, hearing from this download, this education about the dynamics is that we're still healing the old paradigm within us of doing things. Because as you're speaking, I'm like, ooh, I've done that old paradigm stuff. I have definitely
Yeah.
been running
Mm-hmm.
those programs. And so, I mean, this is why we're doing this summit, right? Is to create more consciousness around it so that we can birth this new paradigm of leadership. I loved that answer. Thank you so much. And so, can you deepen into what new paradigm leadership is?
Oh gosh. So in my opinion, right, this thing that we're all moving into is this emotionally intelligence leadership. And I've got to say, there are some okay, I'm going to do this in a diplomatic way, right? There are some programs that I have seen that are starting that are really about like, oh, feelings, feelings, feelings. In the United States, there are a lot of schools that teach, a lot of public schools that teach emotional intelligence now. And it's done with a sense of either, okay, we have feelings. Why do we have them? Now we're going to get you to shift out of them right now so that you will sit down and learn because this is learning time and you can process with your feelings later during lunchtime with the therapist, right? And it's like, put it in a box. And that's what emotional intelligence looks like in a lot of programs I've seen. Now, that's not the goal of the model, as I understand from the organization that is teaching that, that's not actually their complete goal, right? But it becomes like, this is the functional way to do this and teach this. And then I've seen it in the other end. And it's funny because I've seen this in workplaces and nonprofit organizations. There's this other end where people are taught like, okay, we're going to have a long meeting. We've got an agenda. And we're going to center ourselves before we talk, which is great. I'm a big fan of that. And then we're going to move into the agenda. And then if somebody takes an emotional issue with it, we're going to stop and we're going to let them process it. And we've got a long and very, strategic and directed a way that we give this person the floor and then this person the floor, and then we can share and share and share. And we may not get to this agenda because the feelings part of it and getting consensus is the most important thing. And I hear that and I just think, oh, isn't this how communes were run in the 70s, right? Like, and did they get very much done? I don't know. I mean, a lot of them didn't last very long, the ones that I know in the US, right? And I think that it is idealistic and utopian and beautiful and it has a goal, right? And it feels unrealistic. And then the last thing I want is to see that become this functional version that I mentioned first, right? And so what's the medium road? In my opinion, this medium road that we're all really looking to get to, and we're just being wonky with it right now. We're figuring it out. We're like, feelings, feelings, feelings. And we're like, wait, feelings take up too much time. We can't get things done. Stop having feelings. And it's like, there is a middle path. And I think, Schamet, that middle path is being able to say, what am I feeling? When do I process it? Where is there space for it? It's not going to be in every single meeting. It's not going to be in every single second of every day. And it's also not going to be just for 30 minutes, once a week. You know what I mean? It's got to be something where we get a chance to, when can I center myself? When can I think about my feelings? When can I understand even why I have them and what they are and what information they're telling me about this moment in time? And really, our feelings are just these warning lights that come on that say either something is reminding you of the past or worrying you about the future, or there's clear and present danger. It's just one of those things. And it comes down to fight or flight. And I don't know if you have space for this, but I really want to tell everybody who's watching about what fight or flight is and why we have it. Do we have time to talk
Yes.
about that?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
I'm loving this. I'm loving
Good, good,
this.
good. This is my favorite thing too. I just think this is the next step in human evolution. And it is a new paradigm shift, and it is considered to be feminine because we've always equated our feelings and our intuition with femininity, right? But fight or flight is a human response. And we're all part of this, no matter where we've grown up or what gender we are. We're all part of this human response to fight or flight. And animals have it also. Any living thing has this, and we have this specific way with our amygdala that we get this fight or flight. And it's really just about survival. When we're here on the planet, our goal is to stay alive as long as possible. That's our number one mission on the planet. Stay alive as long as possible. And maybe we'll learn things along the way. We'll teach each other. We'll propagate, right? We'll leave legacies in some form. We'll change the world with ideas. There's all these great things we can do as humans. And we got to stay alive to do it. That's the number one mission always. So we think about that old Maslow's, hierarchy of needs and the pyramid, and the basic one is just food, sleep, water, shelter, right? We have to have these basic functions. And if something feels like it's threatening that or is threatening that or our actual livelihood, we go into fight or flight. And then our great brain shuts down everything superfluous. We lose our prefrontal cortex thinking, and we just go into, all right, do I fight right now to save my life? Do I run away to save my life? Or do I freeze to do one of these two things, right? I'm either going to freeze to spring out and attack, or I'm going to freeze to hide. And so it's fight, flight, freeze. I know we have other F's that we've thrown into the mix of like fun and I don't know, all these other things, right? But it really just is still about those two choices of how do I spare myself right now? Is it aggressive or is it regressive? And how am I going to save myself? And I always tell people, even if we get so amazingly evolved in the human race and we no longer have wars or domestic violence, we will still have hurricanes and tornadoes and forest fires and wild animals who can eat us like that, right? And we have to practice survival. We have to do it. It's going to be part of what we have, no matter how utopian we get to be with each other. We have to practice that survival. So our brains, again, are very smart, and they go, oh, this might be fight or flight. Better practice. You haven't been almost attacked for a while. You better practice this fight or flight. And so the boss gives us a weird micro expression during our presentation, and we go, oh my gosh, does that mean I'm going to lose my job? That's my food. I can't live without food. I won't be able to feed my family. What if I don't have a house, right? And we spin out of control and we get into fight or flight. And then we're like, where was I in this presentation? I can't think anymore. And so our feelings actually are those, warning lights that come on when we're feeling first our body sensations of like, my heart is racing, or I'm feeling tension, squeezing my hands, or I'm sweating. That might be nervousness, right? And that nervousness is like, I'm afraid I'm going to upset and displease my boss, and I won't get the promotion I'm looking for, or I might lose my job, right? And we can really back out of all of it when we do very simple exercises to restore our higher level thinking and go, I am not actually physically in danger at this moment, so I can solve this problem. Our brain's like, bing, back online. And the check engine light goes off. And all's good again. And that's the thing that I teach. This is what I love. I'm very passionate about it, if you can't tell.
I love it. I love it so much. So true, huh? And I love what you said about how even when we get to a place where we don't feel that that will happen, it will still happen.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. We think that,
Mm.
we're going to cycle out of this. And I think that's where that idealism comes to play sometimes, this idea that we can, oh gosh, look what I'm doing here. I'm distracting myself. This idea that we can actually get to a place where we'll never be in jeopardy anymore, that there will all be peace in the world. And I just think, that's wonderful. And we, as women, we're life givers and we're about creation, right? And so we want give, create, beautiful, don't destroy. And life is both light and dark and creative and destructive. And we're always going to have those things. But the more harmony we bring to it, the less dim, right? The less darkness, the less destruction. We cycle out of it in a healthier way, we don't have as many consequences to clean up afterward. And it's the same thing for our fight or flight. It really is.
I love that so much. And as you're speaking, what is coming up for me is that I'm this person that I love to clear the air. Like if
Mm,
there is dissonance or confrontation or something's not quite right, a miscommunication, an altercation, then I'm the first that goes, let's have a tea and talk about
uh-huh.
it. And so, let's be you know, emotionally, spiritually intelligent about it.
Yeah.
But not
Hmm.
everybody wants to do that. Not, I'm finding most people actually are not up for that. And it's been a heartbreak and
Hmm.
a disappointment.
Mm,
And I've had to, kind of learn that I have to have patience and grace with people where they are and not
true.
expect them to, you know, be at my level of just like, let's just talk about it. Let's clear the air and let's move forward because yeah,
Right.
I don't like there to be boulders and rocks in the way. I want everything to be flowing and and moving forward. And these are also the people that end up gossiping because they don't like the
Right.
confrontation. So then they go to other
Right.
people and go
True.
blah, 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 blah. And I've been thinking about how that is, in my opinion, also in the old paradigm that we're still healing, right?
Mhm.
Can
Agree.
you deepen into that a little bit? Just, I know I'm asking questions off
Oh, I
of
love
the
this conversation. Yeah. This is my favorite. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited because I'm like, oh, I love to teach this because it's something I've really spent some time working with and studying, right? And all the coaching I've done in 15 years, I counted it up and it was like 110 people individually and like probably close to like 500 between teams and workshops and things, right? And that's a lot of brains to pick. And you learn a lot about what is the human condition, right? What is the thing we have in common? There are sort of archetypes. There are times that people are sitting down to meet with me and, they're going through what they've got. And I'm like, oh, I already know this one already, right? I've got a flip chart of it in my head and I can just tell you, I know what you're feeling here. And this is how you respond to things. And people are like, are you a wizard? Are you reading my mind? And I'm like, no, I just get these patterns now, right? Because there are these patterns to human behavior. And
So
this
you
for sure is
probably see you probably see that I'm a truth teller.
I
I'm a
love it. So again, you and I, we talk about how we relate to things, and like I love it so much because what you're describing is like the feeling. I would relate it as like the feeling, the empathic feeling of like there's a disconnect, and I like the feeling of feeling connected. Right? I like how you're like, oh yeah, like that hits for you, and I love that. Right? And I like to read the body language of people too and see like what's hitting and is it landing or not. And so I love that. And this the same thing, I have the same thing. I'll say in the five love languages, my love language is quality time and deep connection, right? And so this is another way that you and I resonate, and that is beautiful and wonderful. And again, it's not everybody's style. It's just not their style of relating to people. And I've had to learn to not take that personally and go fill my bucket elsewhere when I need to and still have those connections in the way that I have them, right? Because there are things like some people love to receive gifts, and I don't care about gifts that much. I'm just like, gifts are wonderful, but they're just things, and I just don't have the value for it. Now, if I have a dear, dear friend who gives me tons and tons of gifts and I've given her no gifts, she might feel like I hate her, right? So this is kind of that thing, and this isn't exactly what we were talking about, but when it comes to that old model of, um, some people just want to not talk directly about it. That's the real question you were asking. But I feel like all this goes into inform it because that idea of, I don't want to talk about it directly. I will say that I think a lot of women in particular, we are more guilty of that than our male counterparts. And I do believe that is global conditioning. We have been taught the world over to be the good girl, to be the caretaker, to sit down, to think about other people's feelings first, to not make waves, to figure out how to fit in, right? And I actually saw something one time that was showing like male communication style versus female communication style. And like when you were in your best self as a male or a female, like what that looked like. And for women, it said, just for females in general, it said, we were indirect communicators. And I was like, that's not true. And there's all kinds of data to support that the more feminine traditional style of communicating is circular, meaning collaborative, but not indirect necessarily. The natural style. And there was a therapist friend who was telling me about this whole process and system and showing me this, this pamphlet on this. And I was like, I take issue with this number right here that says that women are naturally indirect communicators. And he had all these examples. And I said, don't you have a niece? Was she ever 3 years old? Did you have a conversation with her when she was 3? Could she tell you exactly what she wanted with her hand on her hip? And I was like, that's our highest self right there. We can still be direct communicators. We're conditioned out of that by the time we're going into school. And he was like, and I just was like, it's not okay. It's not okay to be told that this is our style. And then we're told we're not allowed to confront because that's bossy, because that's masculine, because that's not being ladylike, because we're shrill, right? There are all these words we hear that are
or
so
even worse, we're aggressive.
aggressive.
That's
Yes.
the one I get triggered by. I get triggered by it. That
Yeah.
when I am frustrated and direct, it's then called aggressive. And I'm like, this is not aggressive. This is
Right.
just me
Yeah.
being
I'm not
frustrated
ready to
and
punch
direct.
you. I'm saying what I want. Right. And see, and that's direct communication. I think any person is capable of that. Even if we don't like confrontation, we're capable of still directly communicating what we need. And if we get, stern about it, that's because we haven't been listened to, or we feel like we haven't been listened to, right? There's a pattern of that in our lives, perhaps. And the other words that I really hear a lot to describe women, especially women as leaders, even in the traditional roles, but in any role as leaders, is opinionated, right? Or independent. These are they're just like these awful sexist code words that mean you're not a real person. Stop thinking. Oh
I
man, that was a big one
know.
I just said, but that one really that hits me, right? That one really, and I really feel like a lot of our, especially collaborative volunteer communities, we see this type of backbiting and gossip and things that we call it that, and it really is just super frustration, like you're talking about, and people who have been taught so hard to never be confrontive, they can only do like triangulating and like these types of really indirect trying to gain people on their side to feel like they're solving the problem, but it doesn't actually solve the problem, it compounds it. But if we're not given the opportunity to directly have a conversation to say, this is what I'm feeling, here's what I'd like to see, and to actually just have a voice to directly have a channel with each other, what other resources do we have but to go around and talk about it because we feel so disempowered, right?
I love that. Thank you so much. Gosh, that
Yeah.
was rich. That was so good. Gosh, you should be like a communication coach or something, huh?
Thank you. I'll look that one up.
You're definitely very good at your job. Oh my goodness. You're on the correct aligned pathway for who you
I
are.
love my work for sure. Yeah, thank you.
I love it so much. So what I'm hearing from you is this new paradigm is it's a process. It's a journey.
It is, right? Oh, sorry.
Woo!
Yeah, chimes to say for sure.
That was like validation from the universe. Yes.
Validation. Yeah, it's going to take a while, but that's okay. We're here for it, right?
We're here for it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you consider yourself a leader?
Oh, yeah. I finally am starting to accept that role. And I will say that I felt like I was thrust into that role even in childhood. And I think it was because of the conditioning. It's only been recently that I'm able to go back and say, why was I so uncomfortable and not recognizing that I was able to be someone people will listen to, that I do take pride in connecting to others, and I do want to see them connect to their strengths. And that's a natural leadership formula right there. And why did other people see it in me and I didn't see it in myself? And I will say it probably was because of my conditioning. I thought I was supposed to stay shy and quiet. I mean, I'm shy and quiet kind of naturally. Actually, I actually am quiet on my own, but I do love to socialize and connect. But I'm an introvert, and I naturally am shy, and public speaking is like jumping out of an airplane for me. But I love it; it's a thrill, and I like to still do it. But as a child, I wasn't comfortable with those things yet. I needed to first develop those soft skills, and then also I had that conditioning that said girls don't lead, or I just didn't see the models of it around me, right? Or leadership can only be in these places that are kind of hidden from the rest of the world. But then there were also wonderful Girl Scout messages saying like girls can do anything and you're a great person and you're going to be president one day. And I'm like, we're still waiting on that one, but
So true. I mean, we've definitely come a long way, but there's a long way to go.
so much. So much, right? Just that right there says it all, I think. Like, to me, it's like, what? We haven't had females as leaders in most of our countries. What? What is that? Why? Still? Whew. Yeah, we have a ways.
Yeah, I know. We've had two prime ministers here in New Zealand, and then I lived in Sweden for a while, and there are women in powerful positions in leadership there as well. And being from California, I grew up in California. Um, I'm like, when is it going to happen in the US? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Like, yeah. And then people say, oh, well, we can have a man that's feminine. I said, yeah, okay. We can have a man that's feminine, but we still can't
Okay.
have a woman.
Yeah,
Like,
that's an interesting
that's
perspective. Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I'm not against having a
Yeah.
man that is in touch with his divine feminine. Like that would be lovely. That would be a good start, but
Yes. Good
still,
start. Very good.
like,
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
But patronizing, but
yeah,
there's a reason.
exactly.
There's a reason.
Oh, so my next question for you, I love your answer about leadership too, and stepping into that, and that, having to break free of all that conditioning, and
Mhm.
whew, it's a big journey, a big path. Good on you for stepping into it and owning that and owning yourself and your place at the table, right?
Yes, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it. Actually, it's interesting because I would find myself, just a personal anecdote, I would find myself, you're getting nominated for president of your club, right? And you're like, oh, I nominate somebody else because you don't want to do it. That was me a lot, right? Just like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then creating just fracture because it was like people wanted you to do it and you were just not taking the role for some reason, and then I would sit back and I would see like, oh, well, this isn't working and this isn't working. And then I would think like, if I were in there, would I do it differently? And I often would think, well, maybe I wouldn't because, I fill in the blank. And so instead of saying, I could step into the nominated leadership role here of my club and step up to the challenge, right? And so most recently, when another, nomination came up, I looked around and I said, I will do this. And I was really grateful to be able to say, I will do this. And I know what the calling is. And I'm saying yes to the whole thing. I'm not saying yes with resentment and with trying to offload parts of it. And that has been fun, really fun.
I love what you just said about saying yes, taking the responsibility, and not being resentful about the
Yeah.
responsibility.
There's a
And
big part with it, right? Mm-hmm.
mm, mm. Well, this leads right into the next question. And, what does power mean to you?
Yeah. So I think there are kind of two types of power. There's the external power, right, where we can be very forceful and it can be aggressive, right? Truly aggressive by definition and by feeling. And I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of good men also be conditioned to do this to the point that they can become menacing even to their own families because they just think that's the only option for them, right? And so that's tragic to me. And it's not what they're wanting as their outcome. And I've even been that way. I've been coercive and threatening to my kids at times, especially when they were younger and I was sleep deprived. And then I would be like, oh, this isn't what I want. Now I have to apologize and learn to, model apologizing and owning my mistakes. I think that's important for them to do as grown-ups, right? And so that to me is that dominating external power. It's very coercive. And I think that it can still be very powerful. We respond to it. There's a power to it, right? There's also strength, there's physical power. And then there's that internal power that's more like a magnet. It's again that creation versus destruction, right? If we go back to like the beginning of the universe and all the little molecules bumping around, and some of them were connecting and growing, and some of them were, bouncing off each other. And it's the same dance happening there now out in the wilds of the great universe, and the same thing on the planet in so many different microcosmic ways, right? And so as people, we have that kind of internal power that is very magnetic. And my coaching philosophy is actually when you are confident, focused, and authentic with your message, you're a magnet to what you wish to attract.
Oh, I love that answer so much. And I can so relate to it, having two teenage boys myself. And I witness myself fall in, I say fall into because it's not my higher self, but
Right.
fall into that when I'm tired, when I've got too much going on, when I haven't practiced my self-care, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling a bit run down, and I can fall into that old energy. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel good, does it? It's like, oh, darn, I could have done that better. But I love what you said about you just step back in and say, I'm sorry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
on this note, like, I really don't like the whole be unapologetic that's going on in the empowerment movement right now. Like, a lot of empowerment coaches are like, be unapologetic and roar. And I'm like, well, actually, I think that apologizing is a real, like a sign of power, right? Like, it takes a lot of courage to admit you're wrong.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, owning our mistakes and saying that we owe someone an apology, that is very empowering. And it actually, it is I think that's a magnet, right? I want to be with a person who isn't afraid to do that. And now I can say, just for the empowerment coaches who are maybe saying to women who've been conditioned too much, like learn to not apologize all the time, right? Like, but also, again, we don't have to go all the way over the line with it and say we never owe anyone an apology, because of course sometimes we do. Yeah, I like what you're saying about that.
Yeah. I also love what you're saying about the swinging, the pendulum, how it
Yeah.
swings one way and it swings the other way. And I've noticed that in my own journey where I used to be a complete doormat and say sorry
Mhm.
for everything. Like, I remember I'd
Yeah.
be like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I'm like, and then one of my friends, she's like, sorry is a board game.
Stop
And
apologizing.
and I was
Oh,
like, oh yeah, it is. It's a board game. Like, and so like, and that's why
cute.
I did love that unapologetic thing for a while when I was coming into my power. But then I'm noticing, so I swung that way, and then I'm like coming back into the middle. And I think that's what you're saying too. It's that middle path of not being a doormat, but also, no, having humility and being able to own our stuff when we need to, which is powerful. Mm.
Yeah, right. And it's so empowering because then it also empowers the people around you who've seen that they can do it. One of my most wonderful experiences as a volunteer, right? Again, I keep going to this because I think that that's the place where we forget this also is like a really important place for collaboration and communication and for practicing leadership skills, right? So I feel like people who maybe they're watching and they're like, I don't work, or I'm not in a corporate job. And so what is the difference there? Like, we can do this again in our smaller communities too. But I remember being at a volunteer organization, and the organizer was like, our family won't be at this field trip. And I thought, oh, so they're not going to the field trip. And then I was like, wait a second. can we not go to certain field trips? Because I initially had this whole thing like we have to do all the things that are planned with this group and we have to do, and everyone does the same thing. And I remember talking to her and saying, I loved seeing your message about how you had too much going on and you weren't going to be on the field trip. And she was like, oh no, I can't do everything. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of people, I let people plan where they can. And I was just like, that's amazing. I had so much respect to see that kind of leadership right there at that level. It was very empowering for all of us.
I love that. I love that so much. So true. When we model that, then we model that for others, don't we? Mm,
Mm-hmm.
hmm.
And then I had to look at, we were in a different group at the time, a kid activity club. And there was somebody who would say, if we don't get enough people, we're not going to do this because yada, yada, yada. And I had to look at it and be like, what motivates a statement like that of trying to shame and guilt people who clearly have been sharing, we've got too much going on our calendar this week. We won't be at everything. Right. And I thought it's just the organizer's disappointment. And so again, it comes
Mm,
back to owning, understanding our own feelings, owning them for ourselves, but we process them through accepting them, getting the information they're giving us. Because I believe that our feelings are just as important as our five physical senses. I believe our feelings are our sixth sense. They are our intuition. That's why they're often equated with being feminine. We have like two hearts, two organs, the high organ and the low organ. We have a uterus that also has like the blood flow, right? And we like, it gives life, and it makes us like Swiss cheese sometimes with other people's feelings, right? And there's all kinds of scientific data now to talk about, the contagion of emotions. They call it emotional contagion. It's just like a fingerprint we leave behind. We leave our feelings residue also, it's been measured now. And like, there's a way we see this. We see how the heart responds with knowledge and information, right? The Heart Math Institute in Chicago and like all of the great things that they have to teach us. And we haven't studied it yet, but I guarantee there's so much more also with our life-giving organ. And so it's part of why this is kind of a more feminine model of leadership and connection and collaboration and creation. And our feelings are very important information. And when I step in and listen to my feeling, I can go, oh, what is that telling me? And then I go, what's true about that? And then if I'm in fight or flight, I can say, is it life threatening right now? No, great. Okay, this is why I feel that way. Now I have that information, and then I don't have to act on it. And then that's what these things on the left I was talking about before, they're like, oh no, just process and shift your state. And they say process, but they skip the acceptance part. And that equates to stuffing. And then it just comes out big later, right? And so we're just learning what all this stuff is. And I love being part of this journey. Love, love, love it. I'm excited for what humans are going to do as we start to embrace our feelings as important information that we do listen to. We don't have to worry. So we don't have to work so hard to shift, because just getting the message is the shift a lot of times.
yeah, I love this so much. What are your feelings about gaslighting? Because that's it's a big one
Yeah.
right now for me.
Yeah. Mm.
As you know, I've just written this Wounds to Wisdom to Superpowers Oracle deck, which is an emotional spiritual intelligence guidebook in an Oracle format. And I tell you what, and I'm sure you've had this experience too, because I've just written it and gone through it, now I'm like going through like the actual teaching and the dynamics of everything I've written about. I don't know. It's like the universe sets it all up. It's really magical and amazing. So I'm going through this whole kind of deep dive into emotional spiritual intelligence and birthing the new paradigm within myself around it all. And so that's, I think, part of why we've connected. But the whole gaslighting thing, I was like saying to my husband, I'm like, right now I feel gaslit. And he's like, I think
Right.
you're overusing that word, Schamet. So I would let, and I was like, now I
Yeah.
really feel gaslit, you
Yeah.
know?
Totally. Totally. Oh my
So,
gosh. Well, so this is the thing too. Again, there's a lot of us who are like, okay, finally the world is really recognizing, toxic narcissism, toxic places versus safe spaces, and trauma, right? And the big T, the little t, and the gaslighting. That's all part of it. And so some of us are overusing it, right? Some of us are like, I've been wanting to say this forever, and now and now I'm going to point it out everywhere I see it, right? Okay, right? Some of us are going to do that. And I remember too, when I was like a young mom, new mom, and I was like, my son was doing something and somebody shamed me in a toy store. And I was like don't you shame me and blah, 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 and I like walked out of there and I was all ready to like put it all over social media. And, and my friends were like, calm down. And I said, I think I have been excited to embrace saying no and using boundaries, and now I'm doing it angrily. And it was like a wake up call, right? Because I was like ready to put it all on blast. And I was like, okay, let's not do that. Also, what's really happening, right? And so I think it's the same thing with these words too. And I do think also I'm guilty of gaslighting people. I'm guilty of coercing people. We were just talking about that, right? Like for sure there are times that, oh my gosh, I remember I had a client one time who the kiddos hamster had died, and it was a day when there was like a presentation at school for the other kiddo and they were supposed to get there early and they had all these things, and she was like, I don't have time for the hamster to die this morning, right? And she just was like, I don't want to do this. And it's just like the mom challenges of the day, like anything could happen and you got to deal with it all on the fly, right? And like I remember her talking about like, hey, how did I handle that, and what do you think, and can you give me scripts for how to say this better? Because basically what she was describing was just sort of like, okay, that's fine, we'll get another hamster and yada yada yada, right? And like that moment to the kid probably felt like gaslighting. The mom was just like, I'm not as attached to this hamster, and I don't have the time or space or energy for this while I'm trying to get us to school on time and do the extra thing. And I've got a work day, right? And I want to connect with him, but not in this moment. And she didn't have the language for it, but she wanted to have the language for it. So, later in our session, she was able to say, this was my morning, and how can I handle that better tonight at bedtime, right? And that was great. And so I do think we can be very guilty of gaslighting each other, just because we're trying to get our ways. It's the old model we've been talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. And I mean, with my husband, we laugh, about it. But I think he's right. Like he was catching me because I've learned it recently, and it's like now I'm seeing it and I'm
Yes.
aware of
Right.
it. And yeah, and I like what you said about, being angry about it, because I remember when I first read this book called Witch. It's black, got a black
Mhm.
cover. I can't remember the author, but
Okay.
it's called Witch. And I learned about like what the word witch really means and like the
Mm,
history and her story and all of it. I was
mm,
so angry because but yeah, I mean,
right.
there's a lot to
Yeah.
be angry and frustrated about. But part of the emotional intelligence is not throwing that out as well.
Right. And also asking for myself, like, does it serve me? Right. So this
Mm.
spring, I've been able to try to work on releasing some resentments and some unforgiveness that I've had. We were having like schedule issues, right? Both of us had like sicknesses. And for me, it was this chest cold that got so heavy and just lingered for weeks and was such a struggle. And I owned, like, I am stuffing. I still have this. I've been saying to myself for several weeks that I was going to do some sort of like cleansing, burning, forgiveness ritual kind of thing to like let go of some stuff that I had identified. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off, right? Because I've had that resentment for ages. What will I do without it? And apparently it had to get so literally heavy on my chest, right? This idea like get it off your chest. And it's like,
Ooh.
oh,
Hey, there's a big,
yeah,
really bad buzzing. Do you hear that?
I
I think
don't. So
a little bit of a tech issue with a faulty wire, but we're back. And it was a good sign for us to kind of laser focus into the leadership summit aspect, because we've got a lot of things to say about emotional
yes.
intelligence, clearly. We'll
For
leave
sure.
that for another podcast episode, right?
Right.
So, my next question for you today, lovely, and thank you for your patience, is what, wait, hang on. Who are your favorite leaders? Who lights you up?
I have a hard time actually putting a name to my favorite leaders. I will say that they all share these similar traits, right? So it's easy go-tos with the archetypes of like Oprah and the Dalai Lama, right? And then like if I were to actually name these names and put a third in there, it would be my Grammy, my grandmother, who, I grew up with. And so the qualities, nobody on the planet is like totally perfect or totally imperfect, but these are all people who have what I think of as that emotional maturity in their leadership styles, as far as I know it. And the one that I actually had direct connection with, my grandmother, for sure.
Oh, I love that answer so much. And you just made me think of my grandmother.
Aw.
Oh gosh, I'm getting emotional.
Aw.
My grandmother was everything to me. And she was that fierce feminine power that, would be like, stop twirling round and round on the chair, because my sister and I would go round and round on this rocking chair of hers, and it would drive her batty. Like we were so annoying, right? And so
Right.
she'd be like this fierce, like rah, and then 5 minutes later, you're sitting all curled up in her lap. And,
Yeah.
and she was just like Mama Bear, and just the sweetest,
Aw.
most loving, kind,
Right.
beautiful soul. And she taught me. Oh, and I'm just remembering this and connecting the dots just like right now
Mhm.
in this moment as you talked about your grandmother. She modeled that kind of fierce feminine power that can sit in that paradox of also this loving, nurturing, safe, beautiful space. And they coexisted together.
I love that. That's so cool. And that's exactly how my grandmother was too. Like she could put you down in a heartbeat, but if she ever did, there was a purpose to it. And we remember those moments, right? Like my cousin has one of my dad like giving a sermon, and my grandmother reached over. My cousin was falling asleep. My grandmother reached over and smacked her in the back of the head, like right in church, right? Which is not the norm. And she was like, whoa, she smacked me. And she was like, your uncle is speaking right now. And she was like, I'm awake, and that's not a fun story, but also it was out of character for her. And she was like, this is important, right? Because my father later became a reverend, but he was not at the time. But she saw him on his path. And my cousin goes back to that story, and anyway, yeah, fierce,
Oh.
but you knew they loved you, right? You knew they loved you. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. And I mean, you couldn't get away with the smacking thing these days.
No.
It's kind of gone over the top, hasn't it? But, you
I was
know,
like, wow, when I heard that story, because it was out of character for her at the time. Yeah.
yeah, but there was a reason. There's a
Mhm.
reason for it. And I think that's kind of that fierce feminine power when it's aligned in that way is something that we shouldn't gaslight, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And for someone to say like, "Hey, don't hit your grandchild," okay, the valid, very valid. That's not detracting from her power, right? Yeah,
I love how we're trying to stay focused on the
I
questions and we
know.
keep
We just
talking
keep
about
telling
emotional
stories. Yeah.
intelligence. We just can't
So
help it.
I just feel like it's baked into what we're talking about, though, right? So it's not really off topic. It's just that, yeah,
Yeah,
it's its own subject, right?
totally.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that. I love that you've brought up your grandmother.
Mm.
Immediately, I'm like, okay, my grandma's right in there with Martin Luther King. Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, thank you. And so you've kind of touched upon this already, but what are your three main characteristics
Mm.
of a leader that makes the qualities of a good leader?
I actually would have to name four. I wrote them down for myself because we were talking about that we would have this question, right? And I would say listening, receiving, so kind of in order: listening, receiving, accepting, of course, and then committing. And really in that order, like being able to put your listening ears on, see what the need is, receive it, accept it. You may not be able to do all of it, but you need to accept that this is the need, right? And then commit to what you can do and commit to showing up for your team.
Love it. I love that so much. So clear and concise and to the point.
Yeah, doable. It's really
Yes,
doable.
and
Template,
doable.
right?
Love that. And when you hear the words awaken the new feminine paradigm, what is conjured up inside of you?
It just feels so freeing. I just want to go, ah, really for me, because being able to step into my power as a woman, as a person, being seen as a whole contributing person, that's a freedom we haven't had enough of. And that feels super important for the planet, for our healing, like you've been talking about, and for our ability to move forward together. It's not about shifting to now women are on top. It's about now we collaborate. Now we embrace this feminine leadership, bring it into our paradigm, have this beautiful bridge of collaboration where we know there will be destruction and dark and night, right? And that's all okay. Yeah.
I love that. Love that answer so much. I agree. 100%.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, I'm loving this conversation.
Oh.
So juicy, so good, so much fun as well,
Mm.
and enlightening. I've been learning a lot. So thank you for
Good.
your
Thank you.
expertise in the summit. Mm. So, biggest question and the most fun of all is if you were made leader of the world, what would you do? Where would you begin?
That I'd probably say, let's nominate that person. I don't want that job, right? Let's nominate someone else, because if I have to commit to that, holy cow, that's a lot. I don't think one person should be leader of the world, right? That's right there. But if I were in a place where a lot of people were really depending on me and looking for me, and one thing I would like to see globally happen if I could contribute to it, right, which is kind of the point of this summit also, is that I would like for people to understand that when we run from our feelings or ignore them or only try to shift them without accepting them, we're just hurting ourselves. We're just creating more problems for ourselves in the moment and later, and for the people around us now and later. And that goes out in waves, just like when we're healthy, capable, attuned, and we're magnets, right? That's the opposite part right there. So the thing I would love to do is say, I'm going to model, and this is what I'm actually trying to do in my corner of the world, my little household, right? I'm going to model every time I'm feeling this, centering myself, getting resourced. What is this feeling telling me? And then how do I move forward?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And it's just so I'm acutely aware in this moment in time because of the work that you and I do. Of
Mhm.
course, all the questions are going to come back to emotional intelligence
Yeah.
because that's like the
I
foundation
can't
of it
not see
all.
it everywhere. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I really do think that that is the next thing. And that is the most integral piece of the feminine paradigm shift.
It is. Ooh, got chills. I got chills and I got teary. And I get teary when something rings true. And it really is true. Now, this question's not on the in the summit, but I was just wondering how do you approach it when you know that the air needs to be cleared, you know that something needs to be communicated, but that person just wants to put it under a rug and have it
Mhm.
be a boulder between you. Like what I know that Mel Robbins just wrote a book called Let Them,
Let
right? And
them. Yeah.
I have it and I've been
Yeah.
reading it, but
Good.
I still don't know the answer to that question. So
Mhm.
I would love to
Mhm.
know your sage wisdom.
Oh, good. Well, we talked about how this is like, it's hard for us. We feel it, we carry it around with us, right? And so sometimes I do have to do these releasing rituals and let them and let it go and just pray for them, see them doing well, work on what resentment I might have, and just let the energy shift. And then sometimes I get a phone call from that person, right? And then sometimes I feel like I owe them an apology, and that will be the thing that's needed. And sometimes, like if it's my husband, right? I feel like he needs to hear how he hurt me. And this is really important. And he's like, okay, here we go again. I'm listening, right? And I'm like, that's not what I want right now. And then I have to check in and say, when can you be in a listening place? Or I'll say, thanks for humoring me, right? And just accept where he is. Excuse me. Let me just do this for a second.
Acceptance. Yeah, except I'm hearing that you're saying acceptance. I think,
Really think
this is a good piece of conversation to have right at the end because this is how we're changing the world, aren't we? Is by having these conversations.
It really is. And educating each other, right? That it's not all about there's one path and there's one way. It's about what is needed right now in this moment with who I'm with. That's
Mm,
the shift.
that is the shift, isn't it? And then if that shift can't be made in the way that we feel, then that's when the releasing, the acceptance, the letting go, and then just focusing on what is going on in our psychology that we need to forgive or embrace, or what mirrors are being reflected that we need to go, okay, I'm learning, I'm growing.
Yeah.
Mm, I love
Yeah.
that.
I do too. Yeah. And it's not easy. It's not easy work to be present in the moment. But when I do it, so wonderful. Just wonderful rewards.
True. So true. And do you have any last and final words of wisdom that you would like to share with the summit participants? I love that so much. And what's coming up for me is I got really frustrated with a friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed the energy of frustration just like waves came out of me. And she's an empath, so she felt all of that, and um, we're not perfect. Like, we are doing our best in every single moment. And, what I'm hearing from you is having the emotional intelligence to go, okay, fell back into that old paradigm energy, aware of it. I see it. Going to step back into the alignment of, who I am becoming and birthing this new feminine paradigm, and being more and more aware of it as we move forward. And then if that's not received by others, having the acceptance of where other people are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, interesting. This is such a powerful conversation.
I
I
love it. And I love how you just outlined that great template for all of us, right? Like that really is the process. There's like an if then sequence, right? Like A, then B. Okay, B doesn't work, go to C, right? And it really is navigable.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk about, psychic hygiene, like psychic
Mm-hmm.
hygiene being not throwing that energy out onto others, right? Dealing with it in our meditations or in our spiritual practice or movement or going on a dog walk or whatever, But at the end of the day, we're also human beings having a human experience. And sometimes we,
That's right. Yes. I mean, gosh, oh my gosh. I was trying, my little boy on the way to school just this past week, he seemed sad. And I reached back and said, Here, hold my hand. I want to send you love. And he said, Oh, I just felt all of your emotions. You're really worried about something right now because he's such an empath. And I was like, Oh, and immediately felt sad and guilty for doing that. And I was like, let me shift it out. And I just started talking about what I was worried about for a second. And then I said, But I see it all working out. And I kind of just shifted the envisioning. And then I was like, Now I'm sending you love. And he was like, Oh, I felt it. Right. And it was just a powerful moment. I hope it's not too private for me to share for him later when he hears that story. But it was a beautiful moment. And it was like, I just wanted to send him love, but he was like, There's a lot more coming through than just love right now, mom.
oh my goddess, how old is he?
Yeah, he's only 9. Yeah. he's
Oh, that's
he's a whole cool
beautiful.
yeah,
That's
he's a cool person.
That's
yeah.
very advanced, isn't it? It's because you've got, you're the mom and you've been teaching and modeling all this stuff to him, and he's
Allowed
embodying it.
Yeah, and it just makes sense to him. It's just a normal part of his world, and it's not the only part of his world, he still wants to like play baseball and trade Pokemon cards. That's the most important thing, but for him right now. But it's just
Absolutely.
part of his world. Yeah. Mhm.
Aw, lovely. I love that so much. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And the other thing that this friend said to me, and it just really like it grounded my energy, because she says, well, I don't think you're going to get you what you want by, being in this energy. And it stopped me in my tracks, because I teach about emotional intelligence and psychic
Mhm.
hygiene and manifestation. And here I was sitting in this old paradigm energy. And I'm like, Yep, it's true.
Yeah.
And, we can know where we're going and know how we can manifest what we're wanting by law of attraction and being in our highest self. But I'm
Mhm.
sharing this to say it's okay to also get it wrong and not be perfect, and that we're all growing and we're all learning and we're all evolving. We're all in this together. And to, if we can all keep coming back to love, keep coming back to that kindness, that compassion, and having grace for one another and humor and levity with ourselves and with
Mhm.
others. And I keep coming back to that being the foundation for the birthing of the new feminine paradigm, because from my experience so far, it's a bit messy.
Mhm.
But the message is in our mess, right?
That,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Yes, for sure. For sure. And life isn't linear, isn't cut and dry, right? And it is messy. And yeah, I love everything you're saying. Thank you for putting this on and for helping us all to really consciously think differently.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of it. And so, what's going on in your world? Do you have any announcements? Do you want to talk about your book?
Oh, sure. Let's talk about the book, right? This is really fun. So this is my Moody Day book is the name of the book. Let's see if I can get it out of my light
It's
here.
so
In a
pretty.
good way. Thank you. I love this cover. It's really beautiful. The publisher's graphic designer picked it out, and it's available as an ebook on Amazon for only $4. So that's an easy, quick grab, right? And then it's not a
Wow.
dedicated read, it's a daily devotional. So every page has like our four corners of feelings: mad, glad, sad, scared, right? They're there. Our different emotions, the anxiety that we feel is a page. Then there are tools that are there, like walking or music or animals, right? And then, like, how can we use these things? And every entry has a centering thought at the end of just like grounding us in the moment with the message of the emotion or the tool and how it helps. And so you can use it to shift if you'd like to. There's an index in the back to make it interactive. So you can say, hey, this reminds me, grief reminds me of depression and sadness, and how are they different? And you can really begin to learn. And you don't have to read the whole thing in a linear way, right? It works for a lot of creative brains too. You don't have to overwhelm yourself with it. You can go to the page of what you're feeling in the moment. You can look at other related, if you'd like to, entries, and you don't have to do anything. You just get to use it the way you want to use it.
Mm. I love that. I'm like, okay, I'm ordering your book
Cool.
right away.
I hope you get use out of it. If you do, yeah. Awesome.
Definitely. I'll let you know. I'll let you know how
Thank
I
you.
find it.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure it's going to be brilliant because you're brilliant and have so much expertise in your field. Through our conversation, it really landed like for me, like how honored I feel right now for you being having your voice in this summit. It was really, really beautiful and so aligned. And I'm so grateful. I'm like tearing up over here, like,
Thank you.
yay, I love
Thank you.
Coach
So
Kiki.
wonderful.
I love that. I love your. Do you prefer Keela or Coach Kiki?
I prefer, you know what? I don't have a preference at this point. My name is Kealah and I love my name. And we've talked about our quirky names, right? And how they can be hard for people to pronounce. And we've actually even messed up each other's names in other like conversations and interviews. And it's just easy to do. And so Kiki is the hack for that. And it wasn't a nickname growing up. It became a nickname as an adult for people to remember just the mnemonic of Kealah, because my name is spelled with all kinds of weird vowels.
And it's Hebrew, like mine, right?
Yes,
What
it
is
is,
Ki?
right? That was the thing that's so interesting to me, right? We both have these Hebrew names and we're not Hebrew. And so that's interesting too. Yeah.
And so, what does Keela mean again?
It means citadel, which I think is so interesting also because, like, what is that even? I mean, I know what a citadel is, but like the connection usually, right? And then my middle name is Dawn. And so it's like the dawn of a new era, right?
Oh,
What's that?
wow. I got full body chills.
That's nice of you. Thank you. That's my joke, but yeah. Thank you.
No, own it. Own it.
Okay.
No wonder you had to be part of this summit because that
Cool.
is part of your sole
Mm,
purpose of what you're birthing the new paradigm through emotional
yeah,
intelligence and better communication. We need what you do in the world, big time. And I
I think
understand
so.
you're going into schools as well, and aren't
I
you?
have, yes. And I
Yeah.
work with families as teams. I have that also in my right on my website. It's coachkiki.com and people can access that. I get my rates right there. Like I make everything super transparent. And if things don't work for you, I know right now the economy, the global economy is all everything, right? And so like have a conversation with me. Like that's fine, and figure out something that is customized to you because it's important to me to be able to help people shift where they are.
Exactly. And I understand you've got a free offering for people as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I do. And you know what I chose? I was looking through like several different little PDFs and freebies that I have. And I was like, you know what I think would be really fun? And it may seem a little off topic to some people, but I also have co-authored a book called The Partner's Guide to Asperger Syndrome. And it's specifically about relationships where a man is on the autism spectrum, on or near it, I always like to say, and the woman is not. And it's, these kind of more traditional kind of relationships in that sense. But I also am lucky enough to moderate a support group where anybody and any kind of long-term relationship on or near the spectrum, and it's very fun, kind of couples and we've had poly families come and like there's all kinds of things that you need to talk about, when at least one brain is also on or near the autism spectrum, and so emotions. This is a community that is very empathic, people who are on or near the autism spectrum and yet do not have the language for it, struggle to read these emotions. I feel like there's genius, in so many areas, and there's so much empathy with emotions, and it is a little anathema to figure out because it's not got a guidebook like so many other things, right? And so what has been a good teaching tool for a lot of people is learning to read facial expressions, being given that. And you'll find a lot of posters and kids' books on like feelings faces and cartoons and things like that. And I remember working with a couple because I also have coached couples, independently too. And I remember working with a couple where the man said, your face isn't a cartoon. Like I'll never be able to look at this feelings poster and pick like, what is my wife's face saying to me, right? And so we came up with this great tool that I've got a customizable Canva template of, and we call it the Feelings Faces Canva template. And you can put a photo in there of this is what I'm feeling. This is what my face looks like. You just take a picture of yourself in the moment and you say, this is what I'm feeling. And you can use it to guide and teach. And I just feel like you don't have to actually be on or near the autism spectrum to use this tool to look at your own face and say, what does my face look like when I'm feeling this way that I'm feeling, right? Maybe you don't know what you're feeling. There are lots of other amazing tools out there that can help you identify those emotions, including this book, right? But this great customizable PDF gives you the opportunity to put your own picture in there. And then there are some added pages where you can write like, what are the tells that I'm feeling this way? Like, is my mouth downturned when I'm sad, or do I look like washed out, or am I flushing? These kinds of things, little micro expression things. And then also like, what can someone else do to talk to me and help me in this state? So Schamet, if you were to like use this tool and say to your husband, like, when you see this face on me, it would be great if you would rub my back and say, do you want to talk?
I
Right.
love it. Oh my goddess, what a great gift.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm like, yay, I get this free gift too. I'm so
Yes.
excited.
I hope you use that one too. That's fun.
I'm going to share it with my husband, with my kids,
Right?
with everyone I know.
Totally. Yes. And it's insightful. I actually did it myself because I always love to use my own tools. And I went through and I was like, boy, I've got a lot of different. People have always told me I wear my expressions on my sleeve or on my face. And I'm like, boy, do I.
I do too. I know.
Yeah.
I would never make a good politician, for
Oh
example.
my gosh. No poker face, right? Yeah. Zoom taught me that too. The first time I was in a Zoom meeting, I was like, oh, I really do.
Exactly. I know. So true. Oh, I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much. This was so enlightening and fun as well. And I
Yes.
love the free gift and I love the book. Definitely getting it. make sure to send me a visual of your book and I'll put it in the link
Okay,
below your video. And,
great.
just get all your lovely information out into the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know it's late there, so I'll let you go. So much love, Coach
So much love.
Kiki.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, oh, love you. Love you so
Love
much.
you. Thank you so much.